This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610, Carmen CJ, and Runescribble. Our story begins at the parting of the ways, as the Ninth Doctor prepares himself for death. In another life, he may have chosen differently, to activate the Delta Wave and exterminate the Daleks, but that is not the man he is. Not anymore, and so turning his cool gaze upon the Emperor, he waits. However, what he receives is not what he had expected, as before the Dalek beam can claim his life just as it did Jack's, he hears a faint wheezing whine, and turns to see his TARDIS materializing behind him. Though, this is not the only surprise to await him, as when its doors swing open, the unfiltered light of the time vortex flows freely, while Rose strides out with eyes carrying a similar glow. Such raw power is enough to stagger the Doctor, as he collapses to the ground while demanding to know what his companion has done, to which she answers in a voice not her own that she looked into the time vortex. Deeming this an abomination, the assembled Daleks attempt to exterminate her, though demonstrating the abilities she has gained from this transformation, Rose casually rewinds the beam and declares herself the Bad Wolf. She then explains how it was she who scattered the name throughout time and space to lead herself here to this moment, an impressive feat, though one the Doctor has no intention of praising her for, instead begging her to stop this and give up the power, since as it stands she is the entirety of the time vortex running through her head, something that is bound to burn her up and kill her horribly any second now. Still in that alien voice, the Bad Wolf replies that she wants her Doctor safe, the implication clear, though before he can plead with whatever part of her is still Rose to save herself, since his life is not worth watching her die, her attention shifts away from him, and over to the Dalek Emperor, whose claims of supremacy she meets with dispassionate scorn, calling him tiny and insignificant, since everything must come to dust. Everything dies. The Time War ends here. With these words, she destroys the Daleks, atomizing them without even lifting a finger. Even the Emperor is slain, so that the only things left standing are the Bad Wolf and the Doctor. In a tone of urgency now, as he can tell she has mere moments left, the Doctor begs her to let the power go, a request this newly made god denies, since how can she let it go when she can use it to bring life? Gaining fervor now, the Doctor protests that it is wrong, and that she can't control life and death that way, a claim the Bad Wolf refutes placidly, though as she says this, a hint of Rose pokes through, as she questions why the ability to see everything hurts so much. Knowing this pain well as it is exactly how he experiences the world, the Doctor urges her to come to him so he can take that pain away, though using her new ability to peer through time, she sees him burn and die in her place if she does so, and so refuses. Knowing what she must have seen, the Doctor makes one last attempt to take her by surprise, lunging forward for the kiss that will save her life, though having foreseen this too the moment she refused, she is able to preempt him, freezing the man in time and space so he is helpless to do little more than watch as his own prediction comes true, and Rose Tyler dies. For a moment, he doesn't even notice that her grip on him has dissipated now that the Bad Wolf is gone, though as he feels his body move to cradle the burning husk, he knows it is already too late. Nonetheless, he holds her close as he returns to the TARDIS, before gently laying her down and plugging in a set of coordinates he knows quite well by now. An instant later, the blue box appears outside the Powell estate, with a sound drawing both Jackie and Mickey, though as soon as the doors open and only the Doctor emerges with a haunted look on his face, the two humans know something is wrong, with Jackie asking the question she is almost terrified to hear the answer to: where's Rose? Still unable to speak, the Doctor stands aside so that they can enter, with both rushing in and quickly gaining looks of horror much like his when they see Rose laid out upon the TARDIS floor. At this sight, Jackie weeps unabashedly, while in a tone that contains a mix of shock and bravado, Mickey snaps that they can't leave Rose there as he bends down to lift her body before the Doctor is able to get any closer. Knowing that he owes them an explanation, the Time Lord says nothing as he follows them back up to Jackie's apartment, with him using this time to recompose himself, so that as Rose is placed on her bed in a way that almost looks like she is sleeping, he is at last able to find his voice, and begins recounting the story of their final battle with the Daleks. By the time he is finished, Jackie has stopped crying, though in place of tears she has found rage, hissing that the Doctor was supposed to keep her daughter safe, a claim he does not deny despite having once told her the exact opposite. Instead, he simply tells her that he is sorry, before turning on his heels and slinking out the door, as the kindest thing he can do for either Jackie or Mickey now is to never show his face around them again. However, it seems not everyone considers this a kindness, as following him out onto the stairwell, Mickey coldly snaps that it should have been the doctor, not Rose, who died. Turning back to face him with that same grieving expression, the doctor agrees, saying that he tried, since while taking the power of the time vortex from her would have killed this version of him, a new one would have come in his place, so nothing irreplaceable would have been lost. Not like now. Not like Rose. Unmoved by this, Mickey states that the doctor got one thing right: Rose is irreplaceable, before storming away and leaving the Time Lord to contemplate his next move. Seeing no reason to hang around Earth, he considers heading to the planet of Barcelona, since he imagines Rose would have loved that place, though when he reaches his TARDIS, he sees a trio of Santas attempting to force their way inside. Having a feeling they aren't trying to make a call, he shrewdly asks what they're doing loitering around an old police box when they ought to be out spreading Christmas cheer or some such, all the while looking them up and down. At once it becomes apparent that they aren't human from their highly unconvincing masks, and so pulling out his sonic screwdriver, he starts scanning them, with it quickly coming to light that they are robo-forms, likely scavengers trying to gain access to the residual time energy Rose flooded the TARDIS with. Unfortunately, that is all he is able to glean about them, since as soon as they spot the Sonic, they hastily transmat away, though this does tell him two things. First, they aren't working alone, since roboforms tend to serve as scouts for bigger, scarier species. And second, whoever their bigger, scarier backers are, they're within transmat range, which means he might have to stick around after all, in case someone's planning something malicious. Fortunately, he is not left to wonder for long, as we're watching a broadcast of the Guinevere 1 space probe from inside an old fish and chips shop a few hours later. He bears witness as the Sycorax make themselves known, delivering an ultimatum to humanity that they must either surrender themselves and their natural resources, or a nebulous "they" will die. Knowing enough about Sycorax tactics to recognize that this is not an empty threat, the Doctor prepares to act, preferably by starting a dialogue with the aliens and convincing them to leave once they realize this planet is protected by something more fearsome than themselves. Though it seems there are others who wish to speak with him first, as before he can return to the TARDIS, a messenger from Prime Minister Harriet Jones flags him down and requests his presence for a private meeting. Remembering her from the Slovene incident, and figuring she must want his help in dealing with the Sycorax, he agrees, with it coming as a minor surprise when their meeting place turns out to be beneath the Tower of London rather than 10 Downing Street. Nonetheless, the familiar sight of UNIT does serve as some small reassurance, even if it also acts as a reminder of others he's lost, as he along with a man in officer's attire are ushered into a small briefing room where Harriet waits for them. Embracing him warmly, the Prime Minister thanks the Doctor for coming, since this may be their darkest hour yet, a claim the Time Lord does not deny, instead getting right to the point as he asks what he can do to help. Respecting his forthrightness, Harriet does not mince words, stating that she wants him to serve as Earth's ambassador and convince the Sycorax to cease their invasion, since her people were able to decode the message, and she is not going to be remembered as the Prime Minister who handed Earth over to aliens. Nodding, the Doctor agrees to do all he can, though when he turns to leave, Harriet adds one more thing. She would like him to bring a unit escort along, led by Major Blake, who as it turns out is the officer he entered the room with, and Sergeant Petz, the woman who brought him to the tower. For a moment, the Doctor stops to consider, weighing up their help against the danger of needlessly putting more lives at risk, though in the end, he accepts on one condition. They aren't to draw or fire their guns unless he explicitly instructs it, since the Sycorax are a highly violent and easily provoked species. The last thing they need is a bunch of trigger-happy idiots making everything worse. Seeing the sense in this, Major Blake salutes and follows the Doctor out of the room to start making preparations for this mission. While at the Prime Minister's side, her assistant informs her that he's gotten through to Torchwood, so would she still like him to send through that message? For the briefest of seconds, Harriet seems to hesitate, then as resolve crosses her face once more, she nods, since while she has faith in the Doctor, it never hurts to have a backup plan. High above them, aboard the Sycorax ship, the leader receives an update that they are in range to begin their second demonstration, with his fist closing tightly around the vial of human blood they received from that pitiful probe. Why this cattle species would be so foolish as to freely offer that which can control them he does not know, though it is just further proof of their inferiority to the Sycorax, and why it is their place to be used by their betters. However, before he can give the order to activate the blood control, a strange sound echoes through the bowels of the ship, with his warriors reporting a blue box has appeared out of thin air. Having heard legends of the Time Warrior and his small blue warship, the leader decides to attend to this intrusion personally, striding into the great hall where his warriors gather, and glaring down as a small group of humans emerge from the box. Most of them are indistinguishable from each other, wearing the same uniform as if that gives them strength in numbers, though one among them does stand out, a man with large ears and that fur they call hair cropped close to his head. From his position and demeanor, he appears to be their commander, and when the Sycorax leader asks who speaks for this group, it is he who steps forward, giving a small wave and almost coyly introducing himself as the Doctor. In a guttural growl, the leader questions if they have come to surrender and accept their place as chattel, though the Doctor retorts that'd be a daft thing to do. No, they're here with a message from humanity. All over the world right now, people are celebrating a day of fellowship and goodwill towards each other, regardless of gender, race, or creed. A day to forgive old wrongs and come together. Despite their initial hostility, they now extend that same offer to the Sycorax, since there is no need for hate or enmity between them when they are all part of the same universe and could coexist in harmony just as easily. Letting out a roar, the leader declares that Sycorax do not coexist, they dominate, and the fact these humans cannot see that is why their rightful place is as a slave species. At these words, several of the unit's soldiers reach for their guns, though when the Doctor stops them with a yell, they freeze. And speaking of the Doctor, he does not look angry or offended by this declaration. If anything, he appears disappointed, though only for a moment, before his demeanor shifts into that of a man trying to solve a complex puzzle. Not caring what is running through this inferior specimen's brain, the leader orders his warriors to seize this first group of slaves, though as they draw close, the Doctor springs into action, letting out a proud "aha" before running at the nearest Sycorax and pulling his sword from its sheath. At once, the other warriors prepare to cut him down. Though paying them no mind, the Doctor instead addresses the leader as he challenges him to a duel under the sanctified rules of combat. Knowing to refuse would mean dishonor, the leader agrees, with a pair of them taking a knee as they declare that this fight is for possession of the planet below. Then, with the formalities observed, they begin. As a warrior who favors aggression, the Sycorax leader tries to take the first move, as if he can force this Earth champion onto the back foot, he can dominate and destroy him. However, it seems the Doctor has the same rough plan, and with centuries more combat experience than his opponent, he is the first to strike, clashing his blade against the leaders and pushing him back. All around them, the humans and Sycorax watch transfixed, as unlike the 10th Doctor's fight from canon, there is no swashbuckling here. Instead, the 9th uses his broader build to push forward with powerful thrusts and simple parries, showing that today the Doctor does not dance. He marches forward like a soldier. Against such cold efficiency, the Sycorax leader cannot even stand his ground, being driven from the Great Hall and out towards the edge of the ship. Briefly, the alien invader believes that this change will favor him, as his opponent will not have accounted for the reduction in oxygen as they are now in the uppermost part of Earth's atmosphere, though whether because of Gallifreyan biology or sheer determination to end this conflict before more lives are lost, the Doctor adapts, pushing forward until his foe is standing on the furthest ledge with his heels dangling in open air. Only then does he halt his relentless assault, as he orders the leader to yield in a tone that is almost pleading, though deeming a life of defeat and disgrace to be no life at all. The Sycorax makes one last desperate bid for victory, swinging his sword in a wide arc that the Doctor is forced to block. As he knew it would, the impact of this clash unbalances the Sycorax leader, and with nothing to ground him, he falls backwards to his death. No one is in any doubt that the duel is now over, though when the Doctor turns back to face the assembled Sycorax, it is with blazing eyes, as he demands the new leader present themselves. Knowing there is no point to refusing, the replacement Sycorax leader steps forward, and on the Time Lord's command, swears on the blood of their species that they will never return. Satisfied with this resolution, the Doctor then plants his sword in the ground and regards it with a look of faint disgust as he walks back in the direction of his TARDIS. While not sure quite how to react, Major Blake and his team fall in behind him. Having been given instructions where to go if their plan proved successful, the Doctor gladly leaves the Sycorax ship in favour of a beautiful rooftop garden, where Harriet Jones and several members of her staff are waiting with champagne to celebrate a job well done. For the first time since returning to Earth, the Doctor feels as though there is something to celebrate, with him clinking glasses with politicians and soldiers alike, as they wish each other happy Christmas and watch the Sycorax vessel turn and begin its departure from the atmosphere. However, this all changes a moment later, as when Harriet's assistant informs her that Torchwood is ready to launch on her command, she swallows deeply, then gives the order. At once, a massive laser opens fire, with it taking no time at all for the beam to find the retreating back of the Sycorax ship and blow it to pieces. At this sight, the Doctor rounds on the Prime Minister, snarlingly asking how she could do something like that. The Sycorax were leaving. They weren't a threat anymore. He made sure of that. That's why he agreed to go up there, to prevent more needless death, not to make it easier to commit genocide. Firing up as well, Harriet tries to protest, though she does not get far before the Doctor silences her with a glare, as he fumes that humans, Daleks, Sycorax, they're all the same. Vengeful little creatures who immediately jump to killing at the first sign of danger or the unknown. Refusing to be spoken to in this way, Harriet retorts that they needed to send a message, though the Doctor glowers that they certainly did that. Earth is for Earthlings, aliens not wanted. Well, if that's the case, then he'll just be on his way, and they can see how this planet does without its Doctor fixing things every 5 minutes. In a stern voice, the Prime Minister asks if that's a threat, though not even bothering to look at her as he begins marching back to his TARDIS, the Doctor replies that it isn't. He just hopes she remembered to ask Father Christmas for some luck, since she's going to need it. Then, without another word, he steps inside the blue box, which begins dematerializing with its familiar wheezing whine. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.